Hi everybody. So for my research project, I decided to look up information about the anti-vaccine movement that's taken over not only the United States but the entire globe. So to kind of define what the vaccine movement is, or really the anti-vaccine movement, it has to do with vaccine hesitancy, and that is people not vaccinating their children for whatever reasons. So it actually dates back to 1763 in France, where Dr. Gaddy, he began inoculating a vaccine for smallpox. So that means basically he took some of the smallpox vaccine and injected it into patients to build up the immune system. However, he didn't correctly quarantine his patients, and so he put others at risk to contract smallpox, and that kind of began this whole movement of distrust in vaccines. Today, one of the biggest reasons people choose not to vaccinate their children is because of the fear of autism causing vaccines, and this came from a study in the late 1990s by Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who was trying to prove that the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, or the MMR vaccine, directly correlated to autism. And also during the 90s, there was a huge rise in autism, and also the number of vaccines went up, which was believed to be a causative factor and made more people believe that vaccines were in fact causing autism. However, ever since Dr. Wakefield's study, it was found that it does not in fact cause vaccine. There's been numerous research projects done that have disproven this theory. Also, with Dr. Wakefield's study, it was found that he was being paid by lawyers who were representing families that were suing the vaccine companies because their children had autism and they were trying to blame the vaccines on the autism. So not only was he getting paid by these lawyers, but he also patented a vaccine as a replacement vaccine for the MMR, so he would therefore profit off of this new vaccine if people decided to get this instead of the MMR vaccine, which he was trying to prove. So therefore, his credentials were stripped from him. So this kind of disproves everything. Not only were his credentials stripped, but he also, or all of the doctors who were on this study with him ended up writing off and kind of dropping their correlation with this study. So even though this was 20 years ago, it was disproven, there's still so many people who don't vaccinate their children, or at least hesitant to vaccinate their children. Like I said, a lot of it still has to do with the autism factor. People also believe that there are so many ingredients in different vaccines that they can be harmful. People also believe that maybe naturopathic medicine is a better option and can help prevent these diseases that have been eradicated. So there's a lot of different reasons why people choose not to vaccinate their kids. However, it is very evident that vaccines are in fact beneficial. But because people choose not to vaccinate their kids, there have been outbreaks of these eradicated diseases. For instance, the measles outbreak, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. It's not only here in the United States. I know there was a big one in California a couple years back in Disneyland, but it's also in Africa, Turkey, India, and so many other places where people are choosing not to vaccinate their kids. This topic has been so prevalent and so dangerous that the World Health Organization came out in January with a new top 10 list of global threats, and vaccine hesitancy was actually on that list, which I found that very interesting, because it's not a disease or something in particular. It's an ideology, and the fact that this is causing so many issues across the globe is honestly just shocking. So I found a statistic with Mecklenburg County in particular that shows that in just the past year, there has been a 2.5% increase in the number of unvaccinated children. So even in our backyard, there are so many people who believe that vaccines are harmful and don't do any good, when in fact they prevent against so many diseases that can be so deadly. So one of the interviews I did was with Dr. Nicole Johnson. She is a pathologist in Charlotte. I mentioned you heard this number, the 2.5% increase in unvaccinated children, and she found this number to be extremely concerning, and she just thinks that people are misinformed with information, and that the sources they use aren't reliable, and that they should use, different sources rather than what they are using, and they should do more research and talk to their doctors and really learn about vaccines before choosing not to vaccinate them. So talking about sources, this leads me to social media. So social media is a great platform for so many things, and for businesses to get out and do their marketing and things like that. However, it is not the place to get information about important topics like vaccines, which many people do. I know personally, I see all the time new moms asking, what is everyone's opinions on vaccines? Should I vaccinate my kid or not? Which, yeah, it's great to get opinions from other moms, but they're not the person you should be asking about and basing your decision on. I think you should do more research and talk to your doctor and really learn about the benefits and the side effects of vaccines. So I interviewed Julianne Spiso. She's a mom of 4 here in Charlotte. She mentioned that although, like I said before, that social media is a great place for many things, but vaccines are not the place to get, or social media is not the place to look for vaccine information. So the anti-vaccine movement and this in changing people's ideas is so important, because eradicated diseases, as I've mentioned, are making a comeback. And when people choose not to vaccinate their kids, they're not only putting their own children at risk, but other children, because there's certain age restrictions with vaccines, where you have to be a certain age to receive a certain vaccine. So let's say a child at school doesn't get vaccinated and exposes another child that was vaccinated, but this other child has a younger sibling who hasn't met the age requirement yet, and so then they are put at risk of developing measles or rubella or whatever disease that may be caused by not having your child vaccinated. So I think to solve this problem, it's difficult because it's people's opinions. It's a very opinion-based problem. However, I think one of the first steps you could do is to provide educational programs for parents, to really teach the community the truth behind vaccines and show the statistics behind it and how extremely beneficial they truly are. And this would be something that someone would have to be motivated to go to, and where they want to learn about them and why they work and whatnot. So that shows a difficulty where people may not want to change their ways, but I think it'd be a really good start to kind of start changing people's minds. Another solution that I found that could work is that where you require that kids be vaccinated before they go to school. So this is actually already implemented in all 50 states. However, there are vaccine exemptions that allow people to not vaccinate their kids. And this leads me to my third solution, and that would be to do away with these vaccine exemptions. So basically in all 50 states, there's medical reasons why. If you have a medical reason not to get a vaccine, then that's okay in all 50 states. Which, I mean, if you're gonna, if you have some type of allergic reaction to a vaccine, then maybe you shouldn't get it. However, I think working with doctors and trying to figure out the best way to go about that can be done. But on another note, there are 47 states that allow religious exemptions and 17 states that allow philosophical exemptions. So with religious exemptions, there are a lot of loopholes where you don't necessarily even you don't have to be a part of a certain religion to not get vaccines or vaccinated. It's just a simple where your head of your church signs something, and then that's that. And so I think, although we live in a country where freedom of religion is very prevalent, and I think that is very important for us. I think that when it comes to vaccines, that should not be allowed. And so I asked this question to all three of the people I interviewed. Like I mentioned, I interviewed Dr. Johnson, Julianne Spiso, who's a mom, and then also Angela Kazaya, who is a registered nurse, and all three of them said that religious exemptions should not be a thing. They shouldn't be allowed because it doesn't just put you at risk or your child at risk, it puts so many other people at risk. And I think that is the biggest factor with the exemptions. So overall, the anti-vaccine movement, it's a global issue and it needs to be addressed because so many preventable diseases are already making a comeback, and so many more are going to end up coming back unless we get a grip on this now. So I know it'll be difficult to change people's opinions on vaccines. I believe it's possible if they are given the correct information from credible sources and that they, do their research and truly learn about it. So thank you for watching and have a good day.